This is Kenny Tan. Welcome to Real Estate License in 14 Weeks. This is episode 24 of Starting from Zero. We continue to talk about Chapter 7. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell, and share my video with your friends. Previously, we were talking about the Department of Real Estate. I went over the different things that the Department of Real Estate's commissioner can do and which are his responsibilities. There are a couple important things I may have missed in the previous episode. Number one, there's a section on advance fee. If you want to use advance fee, you want to charge advance fee, even though advance fees is normally not legal, before you can collect any advance fees, you have to submit all of the advance fee material, including the agreement, the solicitation materials, and any type of letters that you provide to the consumer. You prepare the material, submit it to the Department of Real Estate, wait 10 days. Once the 10 days have passed, you do not need to wait for a response from the Department of Real Estate. It says submit only. So even if you never hear back from the Department of Real Estate, after 10 days, you can start using it. In fact, this is one of the exam questions, so that's why I want to remind you. And then as far as collecting advance fee on loan modification, it doesn't mean that you have to guarantee the result of your work. You only need to specify the point of completion. So in other words, you can talk to a consumer and say, well, I will do so much for you. Once I have done that, my job is finished. You cannot collect advance fee. However, you can sign an agreement with the consumer whereby you will collect the fee up to a certain point. It's called the point of completion. So that means that, for example, you the consumer, you come to my office, I say I'll do XYZ for you for $5,000. As soon as I finish XYZ, you owe me $5,000, even if I have not gotten you the result yet. Sometimes, for example, loan modification, you can actually promise certain completion, certain work that you're going to do, but you don't have to promise the outcome before you can collect the fee. So it's important. It's not guarantee of outcome, but you have to define the point of completion concerning the fee that you charge. Types of licenses, there are two types of licenses. You got the individual broker license, and then you have the corporation broker license. An individual broker license allows an individual, a natural person, to conduct broker activities in his or her own account. A broker can have an office can have a residence as his office. In other words, you can operate out of your own home. You don't have to rent an office. And you don't have to display any sign at your premises. Next, corporate license. Corporate license, at least one of the corporate officers have to be an individual broker. In other words, 3 people may get together to form a corporation to run a real estate business. Of the 3 people, only one person needs to be licensed as a broker. The other 2 persons does not have to. So not all 3 persons have to be licensed. At least one of them have to be licensed. Salesperson license is a license that is issued to an individual employed by a broker under the control and supervision of the broker. A salesperson cannot act individually. In other words, for example, a salesperson may enter into a contract with a seller for a listing, for example. Whenever a salesperson signs a listing agreement with a seller, he has to have his broker's name on the agreement. And he's only representing his broker in signing the agreement. But the agreement is actually between the broker and the seller, not between the salesperson and the seller. All legal actions must be brought by the broker. What does that mean? Let me explain this. For example, if a salesperson got into a disagreement with a seller for not paying him his commission. Now, if the salesperson wants to bring a legal action against the seller, the salesperson cannot bring the legal action in his or her own name. All legal actions must be done through the broker. Salespersons are required to have written agreements with broker. Remember, this is one of the exam questions. Must have written agreement with the broker. Let's talk about the different situations concerning a license. A license can be restricted license, cancelled license, suspended license. First, what is a restricted license? For example, if you've been doing property management and you violated the trust fund law regarding property management, and you were caught doing that, so the DRE prosecuted against you and they found you in violation of the trust fund law concerning property management. So what they can do is they may be putting a restriction on your license and say you can do all activities allowed by the license except you cannot do property management, just as a punishment, and that's called a restricted license. A license that is restricted on terms. What is a suspended license? A suspended license refers to a temporary loss of license. For example, using the same example I gave you earlier, if a person was caught violating the trust fund law, in other words, he, instead of putting the client's money in a trust fund, he put it in his own general bank account, and that's a violation of trust law. Say, for example, that is the example of the situation here. And the DRE investigated this person, found him in violation of trust fund law, and the DRE may decide to suspend his license. Suspension means it's only temporary loss. Usually suspension is only for a couple of months, sometimes 30 days, sometimes 60 days. After 30 or 60 days, his license is reinstated. A revoked license refers to a permanent loss of a license. That is for very, very serious violation of the real estate law. As I mentioned to you, real estate law equals licensing law. Now, if you commit a fraud against your customer, that is ground for revocation of your license. Once a license is revoked, it's a permanent loss. There may be limited right to reinstate, but usually the Department of Real Estate asks you to wait for a long time before you can reinstate your license. Sometimes if you hire a lawyer to fight for you against revocation of your license, the best that he could do is probably allows you, it's a outcome that allows you to reinstate your license after waiting a certain period of time after the license is revoked. What is a cancel license? A cancel license occurs, for example, when you are without a broker. For example, you're terminated by a broker, or your broker passes away due to the death of your broker or due to the discharge by the broker. So it becomes a canceled license. What is prepaid rental listing service? A prepaid rental listing service requires a special type of license. It's not salesperson license, it's a limited license. First of all, what is a prepaid rental listing service? A prepaid rental listing service refers to a service where a person actually provides a list of listings for rentals to prospective tenant. To do this kind of work, you will require a special license. It's called the prepaid rental listing service. Remember, it's for the tenants, not for the landlord. So if you are a tenant, you want to get a list of properties that are being leased or rented, and you go through a service called prepaid rental listing service. Basically, one source where you can get a lot of listings that are for rentals. And a person who wants to conduct this type of business has to get this type of special license called the prepaid rental listing service. So a prepaid rental listing service allows you to collect a fee from prospective tenant for supplying the prospective tenant with the list of listings for rental. This is the end of episode 24. See you next time.